Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Climate Business Plan Community Meeting webinar. I am Melissa Adams, Washington Gas Assistant Vice President for Climate Strategy Policy and Commercialization, and I will be serving as your moderator this evening. As we get started, please join me in a Washington Gas tradition as we begin our meeting with a safety minute presented by Deshandra Jones.
Thank you, Melissa. Well, summer's winding down and children are returning to school. And as a company with over 800 vehicles in our fleet, we thought it'd be a great time to share some safety tips with you. I'm sure you know the first one. Do not text and drive. Sending or receiving a text message takes your eyes off the road for at least 5 seconds. And here's a scary analogy. It's the same as if you were driving 55 miles per hour the full length of a football field with your eyes closed. It's scary. Just don't do it. And don't talk on the phone while driving. Even talking using a hands-free device is a distraction. Probably best just not to do that. The third, slow down and obey the speed limits. No additional commentary needed there. Just slow down and obey the speed limits. And finally, drive cautiously in neighborhoods and school zones where buses might be present. Be mindful pulling out of driveways and driving through a neighborhood. If you see a bus with the red lights flashing, stop. There's a saying that goes, if the red lights are flashing, you really shouldn't be passing. Those are our safety tips for today, and I'm Deshandra Jones. Thank you.
Thank you, Deshandra. We're gathering today to provide an update on our efforts to tackle climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions. In March of 2020, Washington Gas filed its Climate Business Plan with the District of Columbia Public Service Commission. In it, we provided a framework for how we can help the district achieve its climate goals, reducing greenhouse gas emissions 50% by 2032 and becoming carbon neutral by 2050, which the district is now targeting for achievement by 2045. After developing the Climate Business Plan, we then put together our 5-year climate action plans and also provided a 30-year climate action roadmap, both of which were provided to the DC Public Service Commission. Tonight, we will present an update on these initiatives, followed by a panel discussion on the energy efficiency programs we have proposed for approval by the DC Public Service Commission. Energy efficiency is always a popular topic because of the combination of cost and environmental savings. On screen, you'll see our agenda for the evening. Should you have questions, please submit them using the Q&A function located at the bottom of the screen. You can submit questions at any time during the meeting, and we will answer them after the update and panel discussion. If our audio or video are not coming through clearly, please message us using the same Q&A function. All microphones are automatically muted and cameras are disabled. With that, it's my pleasure to update you on our efforts to address climate change since we last met.
Today, we'll share the progress we've made since our meeting in December. We'll provide updates on initiatives in 3 core areas on which our climate business plan is centered: harnessing lower carbon fuel sources, enhancing infrastructure and operations, and maximizing energy efficiency. WGL is leveraging its buying power to reduce upstream natural gas emissions from extraction and processing, which account for a large portion of greenhouse gas emissions associated with the natural gas value chain. In response to the request for proposal issued earlier this year, we're pleased to share that the company has contracted with Ascent Resources to produce third-party certified lower emissions intensity natural gas, which has been delivered into our system and to our customers since April. The 2023 goal is to have 8% of the total gas send-out to be certified natural gas, with a stretch goal of 12%. By mid-August, Washington Gas has already delivered 11.2 billion cubic feet of certified gas to its customers. Progress continues with our efforts to introduce renewable natural gas, or RNG, into our system. Previously, we announced our intention to establish an interconnection to Washington Suburban Sanitation Commission's Piscataway plant and its RNG production. And that work is well underway. The connection will enable the delivery of RNG to between 50 and 75 Montgomery County Public Transit buses, reducing regional greenhouse gas emissions, as well as particulate matter that's already avoided by using natural gas versus petroleum fuels like gasoline or diesel. This interconnection has enabled a low-cost greenhouse gas reduction strategy as it leverages the county's existing fleet of compressed natural gas buses, avoiding the need for expensive new buses. Using locally produced waste methane avoids the need to use conventionally produced natural gas, and the combustion of this RNG is considered carbon neutral when used in vehicles. The company is continuing to investigate additional production development and interconnection opportunities throughout the DMV. The company intends to take physical possession of renewable natural gas and deliver it through its pipelines to the company's 7 fueling stations, enabling RNG to be used by its own fleet and other fleets. Washington Gas expects RNG to start flowing in 2024. We are working to advance the use of clean hydrogen, which is produced by the electrolysis of water powered by renewable energy. This process, which can deliver carbon-neutral gaseous fuel, shows tremendous promise in the energy future. Washington Gas participated as part of a cross-sector coalition of organizations in the Mid-Atlantic Hydrogen Hub. The coalition submitted a funding application to the U.S. Department of Energy to establish a regional clean hydrogen hub spanning Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia on April 6, 2023. The coalition proposed developing infrastructure and establishing a marketplace with large commercial scale production of more than 120 metric tons of clean hydrogen per day, displacing more than 420,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent emissions each year. In addition, the proposal estimated that the hub will contribute to our local economy by creating approximately 8,000 jobs by 2030. Provide diverse energy production assets that include a variety of feedstock, geographies, and technologies that offer supply resiliency and drive down costs. Provide social, environmental, and economic benefits, and accelerate workforce readiness for the region with a strong emphasis on disadvantaged communities. The hub and its partner organizations propose to generate the clean hydrogen using offshore wind, solar and nuclear energy, and steam methane reforming processes with renewable natural gas. Washington Gas's Project Pipes program is the centerpiece of our infrastructure modernization effort in the District of Columbia. It focuses on enhancing safety while also reducing greenhouse gas emissions and enhancing the reliability and resiliency of the district's energy infrastructure through targeted replacement of older pipe. Doing so will result in fewer pipe failures and leaks, which has the added benefit of reducing fugitive emissions that are attributable to older pipe materials. From its launch in 2014 through 2022, Project Pipes has enabled a cumulative reduction of approximately 24,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions. We're also continuing our explorations in advanced leak detection. At our December update, we discussed our pilot project that used satellite technology to detect emission sources. After assessing the outcomes from several satellite passes, we determined that the technology remains promising, but is best used as a part of a suite of leak detection efforts. Therefore, in the second phase of the pilot, the company is using technology that is mounted on vehicles. The company issued an RFP last April and is now working with 2 vendors, Picaro and ABB, that are checking areas previously surveyed by the District Department of the Environment. In every case, whenever a leak is detected, the company is further investigating with work crews that ground truth the leak area by taking additional measurements at the identified emission sites. By comparing what was measured by the mobile detection units and the ground crews, Washington Gas is working with its vendors to refine measurement accuracy and pipeline replacement prioritization. And every 2 months, the company reports the results of its finding to the Public Service Commission. The company has also deployed drawdown compressors to capture and re-inject gas into the pipeline system during certain repair, maintenance, and replacement activities. Since 2016, the company has used these compressors more than 250 times, preventing more than 2 million standard cubic feet of natural gas from entering the atmosphere. When drawdown compressors cannot be used, the company utilizes flaring, which avoided the release of an additional 84 metric tons of CO2 equivalent emissions on a system-wide basis in 2022. The company also piloted its first vacuum into service effort earlier this summer. Whereas the drawdown compressors are generally used during planned repair, vacuum technology is used when new pipe is put into service. This equipment vacuums air out of pipe so that it can be filled with natural gas. This avoids the need to flush air-gas mixes to the atmosphere during the commissioning process for new pipe sections. Washington Gas is working with the Gas Technology Institute to enhance the use of this technology. The results of these efforts are helping the company to continue to explore and refine additional approaches for reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
And so, as you can see, we've got a diverse set of greenhouse gas reduction initiatives underway. And we understand that there's no single silver bullet for addressing the critical climate challenges we're facing today. It will take a multi-pronged approach with innovative and supportive policy to help us get where we all need to go. And as we do so, we continue to have our eye on customer needs, including energy efficiency, usage, and energy affordability. It's truly the most obvious strategy to use less energy, fewer greenhouse gas emissions, lower cost. When looking at energy efficiency, most people think of energy savings at the point of use, your home or business. However, to appreciate the full potential for energy efficiency to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, it's important to look at the entire life cycle, from sourcing and supply to end use and all points in between. This goes for all sorts of energy, especially those most common in the District of Columbia buildings in our area, natural gas and electricity. The wise use of energy results in both climate and dollar savings. Most people are surprised at how much energy is lost before it reaches them. According to the U.S. Department of Energy, nearly 2/3 of the energy used to make and deliver electricity is lost before it arrives at the point of customer use. By contrast, natural gas is 91.5% efficient from production through delivery. Once it gets to customers, electricity and gas companies like WGL are focused on helping customers use that energy most efficiently. And that's what we'll be discussing with you this evening. Our panel of experts will be discussing a recent energy efficiency program filing that Washington Gas made with the Public Service Commission. We will share information about energy savings that can be realized by both residential and commercial customers. We will also discuss how we can bring these to fruition in collaboration with key partners like Pepco and the DC Sustainable Energy Utility. We know that by working together, we can be more effective than working individually. Joining us this evening to discuss these programs are Josh McClellan, Director, Energy Efficiency from Washington Gas, and Eli Morris, Managing Director of the Market Assessment Group for Applied Energy Group, as well as Jim Herndon, Vice President at Resource Innovations Advisory Services Practice. Mr. Morris has over 18 years of experience helping energy utilities understand the potential for and cost effectiveness of customer-focused resources and programs with a particular focus on energy efficiency, demand response, and transportation electrification. He has significant experience developing, directing, and implementing data-driven solutions for leading energy companies, including managing large and complex projects in jurisdictions across the country. Jim Herndon focuses on strategy planning and programs to more effectively implement demand-side management programs. His work is informed by over 20 years of experience, and Jim leads potential and market characterization studies, program portfolio development, and cost-effectiveness analyses, and he provides regulatory support and expert witness testimony for program filings and integrated resource planning activities. He serves many electric and natural gas utilities, including Dominion Energy, Duke Energy, Florida Power Light, and others. As a reminder, as we get started, we look forward to receiving your questions, which can be submitted using the Q&A function, and we'll answer them after the panel discussion is completed. If we get multiple questions on similar topics, we may combine them so that we can get to more of them. So if you don't hear your question asked precisely as you asked it, please bear with us. So let's start with our panel, Josh, Eli, and Jim, and start with a very basic question. Why is it so important to focus on energy efficiency? And Josh, if you will, maybe you could kick off that discussion.
Sure, happy to do that, Melissa. I think just maybe a quick overview for the audience. So again, my name is Josh McClelland, and I oversee the energy efficiency programs at Washington Gas that are currently in operation in our Maryland and Virginia service territories. Just to quickly go about, about energy efficiency and why it's important or why we should focus on it. Quite simply, energy efficiency is a proven and cost-effective method to achieve a certain outcome or objective. And in the context of what we're speaking about tonight, it's contributing to the district's climate goals. As you said at the beginning, Melissa, energy efficiency equates to less emissions being emitted into the atmosphere and less money being used to meet a certain energy demand. And not only is it proven and cost effective, but it's something that can be implemented today. And it is happening, today all across the country. And as I mentioned, it's happening in our, Maryland and Virginia service territories. And it's something that we're eager to do in the district as well. I just want to make a note to that, it is, there is a lot of attention being given to the effort to transition from one fuel source to another, mainly from natural gas to electricity, and that's commonly referred to as electrification. And there is some merit to that effort, and there are some tangible emission reductions that come from that. But one concern is, that is going to be a monumental effort that could take a significant amount of time and investment to do so. And as we've seen this summer, with the record-breaking temperatures, that climate change is not a threat that's looming off in the distance. It's here and it's now, and so we need to start really seriously thinking about things that we can do today, and what can we get in place to start reducing emissions and mitigating the impact of climate change. And energy efficiency is one of those methods, and that's something that we aim to do in the district.
Thanks, Josh. Can you help us all understand a little more too, in terms of what steps does an energy utility like Washington Gas have to take in order to put an energy efficiency program in place?
Yeah, another great question. So in terms of utility administered programs, it always begins with some kind of policy catalyst, something that represents the will of local leadership, lawmakers, and the people they represent. For the district specifically, it was the Clean Energy DC Omnibus Amendment Act of 2018. That's a mouthful, but it's commonly referred to as just the Omnibus Act or the DC Clean Energy Act. But once this catalyst is in place, the DC Commission and interveners undergo a painstaking work group process to establish the parameters and goals for these programs. And when these elements are established, utilities typically set out to discover how these hypothetical programs can perform. And so that's what we wanted to set out to do initially. Is we did this by conducting a commission-approved energy efficiency and demand response technical potential study in late 2022.
Okay, that's really helpful. And so there was quite a bit of analysis that went into the study, and it seemed to be expressed in a series of scenarios, and it included descriptors like realistic, achievable potential. Can you help us all understand in lay language how you determine what is realistic in terms of energy savings? And maybe that's a good one for Eli to take.
Yep. Thanks, Melissa, and thanks for having me on the panel today. Happy to be here talking to everyone about the study we conducted. So One of the points of this study is we want it to be as representative as possible for WGL service territories. So we conduct these studies all over the country, but we really want to make sure that the data is applicable to DC. So we start the analysis by getting a picture of how households and businesses are using natural gas today. And that really is the basis for how we're going to estimate the amount that could be saved through energy efficiency programs. So we have that snapshot in the first year. We forecast that out over the study period of how that natural gas consumption might change. And then we introduce the energy efficiency measures under different scenarios. So the scenarios we looked at, the first is what we call technical potential, which is really just what is possible. If you don't care about costs and if you could get everyone to adopt these measures, so really a theoretical maximum of how much energy could be saved. Then we look at what is economic. And when we talk about economic, we mean that the benefits are larger than the costs over the measure's life. And then, as Melissa mentioned, we look at what we call achievable potential. And two levels of that, we looked at maximum achievable potential, which is really how much of that economic potential could be realized under ideal conditions. And then realistic potential, which is what do we typically see when these programs are implemented, including the time required to stand up new energy efficiency programs.
Okay, that's very helpful background in terms of, you know, sort of how we put it in perspective. And I guess what really matters is what did we find? What did the studies reveal? And I don't know, Eli, maybe that's a good one for you, or possibly Jim.
Sure. So the study found that there is a significant amount of cost-effective and achievable energy efficiency potential in BC on the natural gas side. When we looked at the analysis, it's roughly evenly split between residential households and businesses. And over 90% of the potential is the energy efficiency potential is in space and water heating end uses. And that's consistent with what we typically see in natural gas studies. That is how most natural gas is used in households and businesses for space heating and for water heating. And then in terms of specific technologies, most of the opportunity is in upgrading of that space and water heating equipment. We look at that at the time of natural replacement. So when customers have an opportunity, need to replace their equipment anyway, they can upgrade that to a more efficient unit. We typically don't consider that as an early replacement option just because there is additional costs associated with that and the additional effort for customers to install those units before they are normally being replaced. We also identified opportunities beyond just the efficient equipment, including behavioral measures and connected thermostats and other measures that can reduce energy consumption without requiring the upgrade of the actual end use equipment.
Thank you. Can you share with us a little bit more? What is a behavioral measure? What's that mean?
Many utilities offer those programs. So it's really about providing customers with information about their energy consumption and often tips on how they could reduce that consumption, either by participating in energy efficiency programs or by just actions they could take to reduce their energy consumption.
Okay, thanks very much. In terms of the program design itself, how did these scenarios and the analysis from the potential study inform the proposed programs that are now awaiting approval by the Public Service Commission? How does that process play out?
I can probably jump in there, Melissa.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thanks for having me as well. Pleasure to be here. Yeah, because Eli's group did the potential study and then handed off results to us. And it was really that transition of what Eli just said of, you know, when a utility is looking to either create new energy efficiency programs or expand their portfolio of programs, it's really helpful to have a potential study to understand, like Eli said, like, you know, is there potential in the residential sector, the business sector? What are the end uses? What are the technologies that contribute, you know, give you the most bang for the buck? So having that potential study really sets the foundation for doing program planning. It provides that directional guidance on, hey, these are the types of end uses, like Eli mentioned, space heating, water heating, as well as specifics. He mentioned achievable potential. I mean, it really helps give the roadmap of, hey, over the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, this amount of savings or participation is realistic to achieve. And then it's a matter of designing a program to capture that amount of potential that's identified. So yeah, like he said, as far as the program plan that's waiting for approval that we put together, I mean, that was really the potential study laid that foundation of, and it includes all those things Eli mentioned: space heating, water heating, some measures that don't cost anything for customers, as well as some behavioral measures. So it's really used as the starting point to develop, that more specific plan to deliver that and offer those things to customers.
Thanks, Jim. I think you're reading my mind, because my next question is really around, as we maximize energy efficiency, what are some of the ways that the proposed plan helps customers reduce energy? And I think you mentioned a couple, but is that everything? Is there anything else that we're proposing as well?
Yeah, I guess maybe just to dive in a little bit more. I mean, or in the planning process and kind of what we got put together, the focus was, on the identified potential, but really, Washington Gas, one of their goals was to offer opportunities for a wide range of customers, really expand, the types of measures, technologies, and savings opportunities that would be applicable to as many customers as possible, and focus on, with energy efficiency, it's for utility-sponsored energy efficiency. It's really around addressing market barriers. And so a lot of market barriers are out there that hinder the adoption of energy efficiency. The two that we really focused on were around education and awareness of ways customers can conserve, as well as rebates that just help bring down that cost. Sometimes the efficient technologies are more expensive than the inefficient technologies. So those are really the two things we focused on addressing. And doing things like, the proposed plan includes providing comprehensive audits to customers' homes that follow, to identify what measures are applicable. And then it could be insulation, air sealing, putting new windows in, things that would improve both the energy and improve indoor air quality for customers. The home energy reports, like Eli mentioned, that address behavioral, that give customers more insight into how they're doing in terms of consumption and use relative to other folks in the territory. And then even giving away DIY kits with things like efficient shower heads or weather stripping that are low cost but can really have a lot of bang for the buck, in an online marketplace in order to get more smart thermostats out in the market, and then also, like Eli mentioned, just the installation of more efficient space heating and water heating equipment. So really a wide range of things that customers can do to help participate and reduce their energy consumption.
Thanks a lot, Jim. You mentioned a number of tactics that can be employed. You also mentioned rebates, but I'm also wondering about what about customers that can't afford new equipment or invest in making their homes and businesses more efficient? Is there any help in the proposed program for those folks?
Yeah, absolutely. That was definitely a key aspect that Washington Gas wanted to make sure that got addressed. So I mentioned the DIY kits. So that's part of a online audit program where customers can go online and or would be able to go online and take an online audit to see what are some things they could do in their own home. And upon completion of the audit, they would get a kit where they could install things free of charge, but install things, like I say, like faucet aerators or shower heads or weather stripping, as well as that, again, back to behavioral and home energy reports. That's a free report that would go to customers that would give them, again, tips on and information on how they're using energy, things like that they can leverage that would have no cost to them. And then the other thing, even on the rebate side for equipment and measures and improvements to the homes that do cost money, the proposed plan has increased incentives and increased rebates for income eligible customers to help that segment of the population overcome that cost burden, like you say, or cost barrier, in installing more efficient opportunities. And then the other thing Washington Gas is really doing as well is, I think you and Josh both mentioned, the other entities that are out there offering energy efficiency. So Washington Gas, part of the offering is focusing on education and outreach to let customers know about the things that the DC Sustainable Energy Utility is doing, the Department of Energy and Environment, and PEPCO. So, as a collective, they get more bang for the buck as a collective in getting customers to understand and be aware of the opportunities for savings.
Okay, that's great. And yeah, it seems like coordination would be important because, Washington Gas, we believe, offers a, vital energy service, but, you don't turn your lights on with gas. And so is there anything else, maybe Josh, that you might add in terms of how would, because it's a proposed program, this program, maybe leverage relationships, communication, collaboration with PEPCO or the DC Sustainable Energy Utility?
That's a great and very important question. I think coordination is absolutely essential to achieve an objective as important as the climate goals for the district. There are a lot of different entities, that are operating to try to achieve that objective. And it would just make a lot of sense for some collaboration and open and broad communication channels to happen between those entities. And I had the luxury of being a part of that process in sort of the early days and the ongoing development of not only our programs, but the regulatory working groups that helped establish the parameters. And it was a very rewarding experience, and it was really great to kind of hear all the different ideas that were being offered, all in an effort to try to just achieve these objectives. And it's through that work group and then through our ongoing communications with the DCSCU and through PEPCO, we have a pretty good system in place, and we want to make sure that we're helping each other and not duplicating efforts or confusing customers. And so that means we have to communicate early and often, and that's something that we're looking forward to do once we get approval from the commission to move forward with these programs. I think a good analogy that comes to mind is, and the coordination is essential is, you think about your energy system at home, right? We have these separate utility bills, and but even though that's separate, it is kind of one system. So think about your heating and cooling system at home. It uses, for electric and gas customer, you use your gas for the heating in the winter, and you use your electricity for air conditioning in the summer. But they're all part of like one system, and and that are all connecting and talking to each other, and they're all kind of being directed by maybe a thermostat or a smart thermostat that you have in your home. And so none of them can really operate efficiently unless they're kind of in sync with one another. And so it's all kind of interconnected, and so all the entities are kind of operating that same kind of energy system. And so yeah, we really look forward to kind of just bolstering those relationships as time goes on. I think another important factor here outside of energy is that there's other opportunities to increase the energy workforce in the district, and I'm really excited to say that we've started a partnership with the DCSCU, or we proposed an extended partnership with the DCSCU as part of our plan to really bolster those efforts to increase workforce development. We're looking to expand the services that are part of the DCSCU's Train Green program, which trains, certifies, and provides employment opportunities for DC residents looking to work in the clean energy space.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Josh. Okay. You guys have described a number of programs, offerings, rebate services. Is anything available now, or must all of this wait in terms of final approval from the commission? And if so, is there a sense of timing in terms of when that might happen, or when these things might be available for customers?
Right, that's another great question. There are some resources available to DC residents and businesses through the offerings available by the DCSCU. But as of right now, there really isn't much happening for Washington Gas customers. So just a quick update there. So the company filed its plan with the commission in late April of this year. DC stakeholders and interveners had a chance to provide comments and state their positions on both the potential study that Eli was a part of and the plan itself that Jim was, crucial to developing. And not only Washington Gas, but Pepco, filed their plans. And so both utility administrators have been patiently waiting and are eager for the commission to make a ruling for these proposals so that the important work of launching these programs can begin and we can start contributing to DC's climate goals.
Thanks very much, Josh. Okay, so again, just a reminder, if you haven't submitted a question and would like to, please go to the bottom of your screen and you will see the Q&A function. So please submit there. And in just a moment, we will turn our attention to some of the questions that we have received. And let's see. One of our questions was, whether or not I think this meeting will be docketed with the Public Service Commission, and I am not aware that it will be, but what we do tend to do, what our practice is that we do post a recording of this session on our Climate Business Plan website so that we can, make it available to those that may not have been able to join us this evening. So that is one of our first questions. Let's see, I'm looking for my other questions here. Let's see. Oh, okay. We also have another question about certified natural gas, and the submitter is asking, what is certified natural gas? How is it sourced? And how much lower are emissions? And so certified natural gas is supply that we get from our providers, and there are many providers, that has been certified by a third party to have a lower emissions intensity. So that relates to its production and extraction, the process of getting that gas really essentially out of the ground. And right now we have made 2 purchases of certified natural gas since we first went out via request for proposals. And most recently, we made a purchase using MIQ's standard of certification. MIQ, that group, it's an outgrowth of the Rocky Mountain Institute, that protocol. And then it's third-party audited. And so when we issued the request for proposals for that particular supply, we specified that we wanted an emissions intensity of 0.05%. And that compares to a national average based on the EPA's 2019 inventory of methane sinks. That compares to, I believe, a national average of 0.61%. So that the associated methane level for the extraction of that gas is materially less than the national average. And that's very important because as we look across the gas value chain in terms of, where emissions are coming from, approximately half or more of those emissions are related to upstream production. So this is one strategy that we're using to help encourage and reduce emissions across the entire gas value chain. And I think we refer to this in the beginning of our presentation that we had a target this year of 8%, and we're with a stretch of going to 12%, and so that has been pretty successful so far, and yeah, so that's hopefully that answered the question about certified natural gas. Let's see if we're getting any. We have a number of questions coming in. Does Washington Gas genuinely believe that the energy efficiency programs it has proposed support the district's climate goals? I think we sort of responded to that through our panel questions, but I'm going to turn that over to Josh to see if he has anything further to add. Josh, would you like
Sure.
to?
Yeah, I think we did kind of answer the mail on one of the panel questions, but I think it bears repeating. Yeah, I don't think we just believe that it's going to contribute to the district's climate goals. That we know it is. We are certain it is. As I stated earlier, energy efficiency is a proven method to reduce emissions. Right, the less gas you're using, the less emissions are being emitted in the atmosphere when you're combusting it to meet a certain energy need. Right, there's little controversy behind that, and that has been vetted and verified to the nth degree across the entire country. And so it just makes a lot of sense that any sort of effort to reduce emissions is comprised of energy efficiency, and not just for Washington Gas, or I'm sorry, for natural gas, but for electricity as well. It's agnostic to fuel type. So we want to reduce emissions for natural gas and electricity, being generated on site. So if there's less electricity being used on the system, that means there's less fossil fuels to meet that energy demand, at the generation source. So yeah, absolutely, we believe that these programs can and will contribute to DC's climate goals.
Okay, great, thanks, Josh. And again, those are pending approval. They don't depend on advanced technology. They're ready now solutions we can use, just as buying certified gas is a ready now solution that can really help reduce emissions on a regional, national, and global basis.
That's right.
Let's see, I am getting another question here. How much of DC's natural gas could be replaced by biogas generated from wastewater, animal waste, plant waste, etc.? And if all that is reasonably available, does WGL plan to create any methane digester plants to produce this kind of gas? So I think I would go back when we put the climate business plan forward. We also did a companion study on renewable natural gas resources, both in our immediate region as well as in the mid-Atlantic, that could be accessible. And we did determine that there was really quite a bit of renewable natural gas available. And that's really detailed in a great bit of, detail on our website, which is WashingtonGasClimateBusinessPlan.com. And so I would suggest looking at that. But again, that was a couple of years ago. So we continue to look across the region at resources. You heard about, our connection to the Piscataway plant. There are also a number of other resources in the region that we're looking at and are in advanced discussion. So we're hoping to make some other connections and talk about those sometime in the future. And looking at sort of what that would entail for us, we have some favorable legislation in the Virginia area that enables us to connect and possibly have those assets be sort of part of our system, because I think that was part of the question. So some of these things are still open, and we're exploring in terms of what makes the most sense for our customers and the region. Let's see, another question we just received was, is there a typical lifespan of space and water heating equipment for large, medium, small, commercial, and residential? And maybe Eli or Jim, that might be a good question for one of you guys to take.
Sure, I can take that one. So when we do the potential studies, we look at a lot of different technologies, and we do look at the average lifetime of the equipment, and it can vary by the type of equipment, the efficiency, the application. I would say we typically see that space and water heating equipment lasts probably 15 to 18 years on average. And that is an average value. Some units will last longer, some will last shorter, but we typically assume in that range, maybe 15 to 20 years, depending on the type of equipment and the application of it and the customer class and how it's being used.
Thanks very much. That's very helpful. We have another question about the time frame for introducing hydrogen into the methane distribution mix and what percentage of the mix is planned for hydrogen. I would say hydrogen is a longer term strategy, and we identified that in the climate business plan. I think it was coming on, you know, at that point, sometime in the 2040s range, but it could be sooner, thanks to the current administration's focus on hydrogen. A lot of the cost related to hydrogen is coming down, but you know, there's still a bit of study that needs to be done in terms of its compatibility with our infrastructure, and safety is always you know, first and foremost. We think hydrogen has a lot of capability in all kinds of applications, in transportation, in fuel cells, whether in electric vehicles where there really is no combustion, or in a fuel cell setting. You know, we recently upgraded our fuel cell at one of our operation centers, and it is should be hydrogen compatible. So that would be a really exciting use there, again, with no emissions associated. So again, it's not going to be tomorrow, but it's something we have planned for and expect to be included into our mix at a later date. We have another question here. The DC Council has outlawed natural gas hookups in new buildings after 2026, and the DC Sustainable Energy Utility no longer offers rebates. DC is focused on electrification. Why is Washington Gas proposing programs that promote installing new gas equipment and appliances? I'm going to make a few comments here and then probably share this with Josh and Eli and Jim. But the issue is that we currently have 165,000 or so customers, and those customers, you know, we would like to see people use energy as efficiently as possible, both for lowering the emissions associated with that use, as well as, you know, it's an affordability and pocketbook issue. I think DOE just did a study that mentioned that on a per unit basis, you know, this is a national stat, but electricity is about 3 times as expensive as gas. So again, we're focused on climate issues, but we're also focused on our customer needs and affordability. And so we need to do what we can now. And there are a lot of customers using gas now. And so we want to make that usage as efficient as possible. I don't know, Josh or Eli, Jim, does anybody have anything to add about why we're focused on these programs now?
Sure, I think I can jump in there, Melissa. You know, that's a very good point. And yeah, there is some, you know, legislation in the district that is, you know, calling for no new gas hookups at a certain point. But to your point, yeah, there's still a lot of gas customers out there, right? And there's still a lot of folks out there who, well, I think maybe just elaborate a little bit more beyond what you said is maybe the topic of electrification, right? There is some merit to that effort, and there's opportunities to that process. But we have seen, and through feedback through some of our stakeholders, that electrification in some instances may not be practical or feasible, or and there may be certain sectors of the market that might be more difficult to electrify than others. And so the way that we think about energy efficiency is, okay, what other resources, what other tools does a district have in its toolbox to reduce emissions in the absence of the fuel switching effort? And so that's why it's very important that these programs that we are offering and that are awaiting approval from the commission are in place, because it just allows that other opportunity, that additional lever to be pulled for the district to reduce emissions alongside a lot of other efforts, because it is, to achieve these climate goals, it is a multi-pronged approach, and we need every tool in the toolbox to drive down emissions. So yeah, and yeah, so that's, I think, another point to consider.
Okay. I just received another question. It says, you said, so maybe that was me. The DCSEU doesn't have much for Washington Gas customers. However, WGL customers can obtain a rebate, which was increased in August, for purchasing electric appliances. How does the cost of converting to electricity compare for customers? I think probably they mean, how much would it be? What are the costs involved if somebody wanted to take advantage of a rebate and purchase an electric appliance? I don't know if maybe Eli or Jim want to chime in on this answer.
I can start, and then maybe Jim or Josh might have something to add. So that is something we looked at as part of the potential study. We did some analysis from the residential customer perspective of when that equipment is up for replacement, gas furnaces and gas water heaters. What are the costs to either upgrade that equipment to a more efficient gas unit or to convert it to an electric unit? So that analysis is out there. We did find that it will tend to be more expensive to do the electric conversion, and considering that's a full lifetime cost analysis over the length of the equipment's life. So I think this gets back to some of the things that Josh was saying about supporting the natural gas customers and in that decision making, but also recognizing that even though electrification may be happening, it's going to be a customer decision on what makes economic sense for them, what aligns with their priorities. But we did provide information in that study to look at, on average, what would be the relative costs of electrifying those end uses versus upgrading them through an energy efficiency opportunity.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Eli. I don't see any more questions, and coming into me right now. And so if I receive any others, we will respond to those individually. Oh, okay, I'm getting a message now that we are just about at time. And then we did get some other questions on hydrogen and renewable natural gas that we didn't get to, I think, because primarily we wanted to take advantage of our panel of experts this evening and our focus on energy efficiency. So we will answer those questions separately. And again, I would encourage everybody to go to our Washington Gas Climate Business Plan page, which you can find at Washington Gas DC Climate Business Plan.com. And we will be providing a recording of this event on the site. So, if anybody missed it, it will be available. And we very much thank you and appreciate your attention this evening, and look forward to meeting with you again at our next meeting, which we expect to hold sometime in early to mid-December. So again, thank you so much. And I wish you all a lovely evening.